In the past, multiple magic circles suddenly appear in the sky. The spectators in what seems to be a coliseum are left stunned and in awe at the sight. A sinister smile spreads across the face of a lady, while the atmosphere trembles with intensity. Meanwhile, Percival stands firm, facing his opponent. The air was thick with anticipation as Percival braced himself, ready to endure his opponent's magic. Around them, spectators watched intently, eager for the battle to unfold. Percival was drinking tea with the guild president in his office, discussing the summon comet. He recalled his memorable opponent, a powerful magic user from the Imperial Inspection Martial Arts Tournament 8 years ago. This conversation with the guild president took place a few days before Percival entered the labyrinth. The guild president recalled that there had been someone truly remarkable at the tournament. While the summon comet is incredibly powerful, it requires significant time to prepare and cast, draining a large amount of magical energy. It's already unusual for someone to announce they'll use such a spell in a one-on-one martial arts battle. For an opponent to unleash it against Percival makes it all the more extraordinary. However, what was even more astonishing was what happened afterward. Several meteor-like attacks rained down from the sky. The meteors rained down toward Percival in the Colosseum, their impact sending shockwaves through the air. The spectators watched in terror, while his mage opponent smiled. Yet, as the attacks landed, Percival skillfully dodged every single one. Amidst a flurry of falling stars, Percival emerged nearly unscathed. He explained that his opponent didn't intend for him to be hit directly. The guild president, intrigued by this, listened closely. Percival explained that if he had realized the aim wasn't directly at him, but rather at the ground around him, he would have been able to handle it. However, the spell was cast quickly, creating turbulence and a barrage. By fully utilizing such an unprecedented tactic, the opponent's true intent became clear to Percival. It was stunning. For a brief moment, Percival found himself in a state where he couldn't attack or defend. The attack had slowed him down, leaving him vulnerable. The audience was equally baffled, unable to comprehend how the heavenly sword had been pushed to that point. In awe of the unbelievable sight before them, they held their breath and continued to watch in tense silence. They wondered what on earth would happen next, captivated by the unfolding scene. As Percival dodged all the attacks, he managed to close the distance to his mage opponent. As they clashed, the mage prepared to unleash another attack, while Percival gripped his sword tightly. With a sinister smile, the mage's eyes gleamed with anticipation. But suddenly, the bell ringer struck the bell to signal. Both Percival and the mage were shocked by this. The referee then signaled them to stop. The referee then declared that tournament regulations prohibit attacks intended to kill or potentially kill fighters. Furthermore, the magic attack was deemed a violation of this rule. As a result, Percival Mercolius was declared the victor. Percival was in disbelief, feeling that it was a completely unjust decision. The guild president stated that while an ordinary person might have died, the opponent was the heavenly sword, who, in fact, was not even injured at that point. They argued that it should have been a praiseworthy moment, a testament to the mage's exceptional skill and intuition. Successfully creating enough time to cast magic and gain an advantage over Percival, a high-speed combat specialist, was a remarkable feat. And that if it hadn't been unnecessarily interrupted, no one could have predicted what might have happened next. Percival believed that an incredible battle could have unfolded. Even now, he still considers it a shame. The guild president agreed as well. Just when Percival had finally met a truly magnificent adversary, the guild president recalled that he had been curious at the time and looked into it. He suspected that the referee had deliberately made that judgment to gain favor with the Mercolius family, who were direct aristocrats. While it was a foolish decision, it was, unfortunately, a fairly common occurrence. The guild president figured it out. That's why he brought up the labyrinth and asked Percival about it. Percival remained silent, simply sipping his tea. Percival replied that the tea was good. The guild president remarked that the tea he poured was Iodor, and mentioned that it was quite a big deal to know that the head of the Mercolius house's refined taste could be pleased by such humble tea leaves. He added that if Percival liked it, he was welcome to have more when he returned from the labyrinth. Percival, pleased to hear this, replied that he would. They continued their peaceful conversation throughout the night. Back in the labyrinth, the sound of swords clashing echoed through the narrow hallways, bouncing off the walls. Percival and the Minotaur continued to trade blows and slashes, battling fiercely as the Minotaur expertly defended against every attack from the heavenly sword. As Percival attacked, he thought to himself that the Minotaur was stubborn, its muscles far stronger than those of a normal individual. He realized that restrained attacks wouldn't be enough to get through. The Minotaur handled its weapon faster than Percival had anticipated, continuously blocking every attack aimed at its vital points. And then there were the eyes of the Minotaur. Percival thought that if he could grab a rare item from the sack, he could break free from the gridlock situation immediately. However, he was certain those sharp eyes would never miss such a subtle movement. The Minotaur lunged forward, swinging its sword with force. But Percival dodged the attack with ease, smoothly evading it. Percival thought to himself that all he had at his disposal was his long sword and his refined slashing techniques. Then Percival prepared to make a powerful attack, focusing all his strength into the strike. With a quick barrage of spinning slashes, Percival pushed the Minotaur into a defensive stance. With one powerful swing, Percival managed to sever the Minotaur fingers, causing it to lose its grip on the sword. Percival readied another swing, preparing to strike as the Minotaur stood stunned and in disbelief. But in a surprising turn of events, Percival wobbled. The Minotaur, taken aback by this, noticed the moment of weakness, while Percival, visibly annoyed, regained his balance. With a series of swift blows, Percival pressed the Minotaur back, its defense unyielding. He quickly distanced himself, and the Minotaur responded with an enraged roar. The Minotaurs strike the ground, sending small rocks flying toward Percival as an attack. He swiftly deflects most of them, but one slips through and strikes his hand. A potion falls to the ground, catching the Minotaur's attention. It recalls a previous encounter with a male adventurer who also drank a potion. Seeing the vial slip from Percival's grasp, the Minotaur instinctively realizes this guy is exhausted. In fact, Percival's body was starting to scream. After sprinting up more than 40 floors for training and enduring an intense, prolonged battle with the Minotaur, exhaustion was setting in. The Minotaur didn't understand the effects of potions, but it keenly recognized the opening. The Minotaur strikes the ground, hurling more rocks at Percival. Then, without hesitation, it swings its axe. In a powerful strike, aiming to crush him as Percival swiftly dodges each attack. As Percival dodged, he realized there was no chance to heal and wondered if his fatigue had drawn the Minotaur's attention. The beast continued its relentless assault, swinging and slashing without pause. Yet, despite the barrage, Percival avoided every strike. But Percival also saw this as a great opportunity. If the Minotaur continued its relentless attacks, its defenses would inevitably be neglected. The Minotaur prepared to unleash a powerful strike, but in that moment Percival spotted an opening its exposed neck. Seizing the opportunity, he struck first with incredible speed, slicing a small part of the Minotaur's neck. The battle raged on as they exchanged blows. Percival landed another strike, but it was shallow. He knew it wouldn't reach any vital points, it was too weak. The Minotaur let out a furious roar, enraged by the attack. Percival stepped back, and the Minotaur immediately noticed. With a growl, it began to slowly push forward, closing the distance between them. They both stood still. The Minotaur breathed heavily, its expression one of surprise. Percival, sensing the shift, thought that the creature was surprised. This wasn't a natural turn of events. The demon beast was calculating, timing its strikes perfectly. By combining the reach of its arms and weapon, it had the upper hand. Although the Minotaur's attacks were landing, Percival's strikes were falling short. The beast remained vigilant, defending against Percival's every move, waiting until the last possible moment. Moreover, the game presents a tough challenge. It's Percival's limits against the Minotaurs who will reach their breaking point first. Percival declares that he will pour his heart and soul into this battle. The Minotaur's body is covered in small cuts, its heavy breaths filling the air. Opposite him, Percival stands firm, ready to face his foe. This is exactly what the guild president had asked him. Why did he choose to enter the labyrinth? For a battle like this. Just then, a crystal ball filled with fire glows brightly and crackles. Percival raises his sword and commands the Minotaur to come. With a furious roar, the beast charges, eyes burning with rage. Thus begins an epic battle blades clash. Fists strike, and the echoes of their struggle shake the labyrinth. The Minotaur and Percival clashed with every ounce of their strength, neither willing to back down. Their weapons struck with relentless force, each blow met with an equally fierce counter. The battle raged on, an unending exchange of power and will, pushing both fighters to their very limits. Their battle reverberated through every corner of the labyrinth, each strike sending shockwaves through the ancient walls. The clash of steel and the roar of combat filled the air, a testament to the sheer power and determination of both warriors. It was a relentless clash of attacks and defenses, neither warrior pausing for breath. Blow after blow, the battle raged on, stretching endlessly as both fought with unwavering resolve. The Minotaur swung fiercely, but Percival met each attack with swift precision, countering with his own strikes. Blow after blow, he landed more hits, steadily wearing down his opponent. Frustration grew in the Minotaur's eyes as it struggled to keep up with Percival's relentless assault. What painted the swordsman before him in red was not his own blood, but the Minotaur's blood, splattered across him. From countless wounds, the Minotaur gritted his teeth in frustration. Despite fighting at this relentless pace for so long, he couldn't land a single blow on the tiny human before him. His fury grew, but so did his weariness. In his anger, the Minotaur struck with increasing fury, each swing more desperate than the last. His frustration fueled his attacks, but the tiny human seemed to evade him at every turn. And with each of the Minotaur's furious strikes, Percival flawlessly countered, his movements precise and calculated. With every evasion and parry, he found openings to strike back, his sword cutting through the air with deadly intent. In a moment of careless rage, the Minotaur's attack left him wide open. It was a mistake the heavenly sword would never let slip. Percival seized the opportunity, his blade striking true with unmatched precision. For a brief moment, Percival's movements faltered, a slight looseness in his technique. His fatigue had reached its breaking point, and the toll of the prolonged battle began to show, even on the heavenly sword. The Minotaur spotted it and charged with all his might. Percival was struck by the full force of the Minotaur's body charge, the impact knocking the air from his lungs and sending him flying through the air. The Minotaur clenched his hands around his axe, ready to strike. Then, with lethal force, he struck Percival's left leg, the axe slicing through the flesh with a brutal, clean cut. The force of the attack sent Percival sliding across the floor, struggling to regain his footing. The Minotaur quickly closed the distance, relentless in his pursuit, ready to strike and finish the fight once and for all. Though still lying on the floor, Percival gathered his strength and managed to strike, landing a blow on the Minotaur's hooves. The hit caused the beast to wobble, its massive frame teetering as it began to fall. Seizing the opportunity, Percival spun quickly and struck, his blade aimed directly at the Minotaur's neck. But the Minotaur managed to evade by a mere inch, narrowly avoiding the deadly strike. Percival, undeterred, pressed on, unleashing a flurry of attacks, each aimed at the beast's neck, determined to find an opening. One of Percival's strikes landed true, hitting the Minotaur directly in the eye, before collapsing to the floor. Seizing the moment, Percival swiftly lunged forward, striking again. Percival's strike found the Minotaur's neck, but the blow wasn't deep enough to finish it. Still, the force of the attack sent the beast crashing into the wall of the labyrinth, its massive body leaving a crack in the stone as it crumpled to the ground. Percival remained lying on the ground, his body battered, but still resilient. The Minotaur could feel its heart pounding in its chest, a mix of anger and respect building within it. In frustration, it realized just how incredible Percival truly was, a warrior who refused to yield even in the face of overwhelming power. That was the first feeling the Minotaur had ever harbored, respect. It was a rare emotion, one it had never experienced in battle before. As Percival lay on the floor, his leg injured and blood still gushing. He was thinking. As Percival lay there, he took a deep breath and positioned his sword over his body, readying himself. The Minotaur watched, puzzled by the warrior's actions. Minotaurs cautiously stepped forward to check on Percival, his expression filled with confusion. As he moved closer, uncertainty lingered in his mind. As soon as the Minotaurs entered Percival's range, he swiftly executed a circular strike, sensing his opponent's presence. The strike landed on the Minotaur's foot, causing him to stagger. The attack was swift and inflicted severe damage, causing the Minotaur's foot to bleed. Shocked and in pain, he quickly jumped backward. Panting heavily, sweat dripped down the Minotaur's face as he stared at Percival's sword. The sword gleamed in silence, radiating an arc of light and indiscriminate boundary that cut through anything that dared to enter. It was Percival's blade's sphere of certain death. The Minotaurs didn't know what to do. He couldn't get close. But if he couldn't get close, then he just had to do it. What the Minotaurs thought was that the man in front of him would die soon, so it would be fine to just wait for that without trying to approach. He was also in his limit. There was no need to bother risking more danger. If he simply waited without making a move, victory would eventually be his. Then, the Minotaurs grinned. With a surge of power, he punched himself. The impact sent him reeling backward. He pondered over his own thoughts, questioning if he was an idiot for thinking that way, as he spat out some blood. What he sought was not victory, but the thrill of battle. With a fearsome expression on his face, he desired nothing more than a battle to the death, facing great and powerful enemies. He studied Percival closely, realizing that what he truly desired was neither his head nor his heart. It was the sword. The sword was Percival's life. The Minotaurs gripped his axe tightly and stomped his feet, preparing to launch his attack. He focused all his attention, waiting for the perfect moment. Percival lay silently, narrowed in concentration. Both were locked in a tense focus as the Minotaurs slowly stepped into Percival's attack range. With the Minotaur's foot now inside the range, Percival struck swiftly. The Minotaurs didn't even see the attack coming. The strike landed, cutting through one of his feet. In a blur of motion, the Minotaurs managed to block Percival's sword just as it returned to its striking position. After the strike to his foot, the sword's speed was slightly slowed, giving the Minotaurs just enough time to block it. As Percival's sword collided with the Minotaur's axe, both weapons cracked, the force of the impact reverberating through them. Then, the worst happened. Percival's sword snapped. He awake, his eyes snapping open as he saw the broken sword before him. Without wasting a moment, the Minotaurs delivered a powerful blow to Percival's chest, dealing massive damage. The strike severed Percival's right hand, leaving him reeling. Percival's blood scattered everywhere, staining the ground as he staggered from the force of the blow. The Minotaurs wheezed, his gaze fixed on Percival, who now appeared lifeless, his breath heavy and labored. The Minotaurs raised his axe, then shifted to attack with his hands. He squeezed Percival's chest with immense strength, crushing him as Percival lay helpless, unable to do anything. The Minotaurs craved more. He wanted Percival to suffer, to endure more pain, to refuse death for just a little longer. He wanted Percival to push back, to keep fighting, to give him the challenge he craved. With the last of his strength, nearing the end, Percival looked at the Minotaurs. A satisfied smile spread across his face, as if he had found peace in the battle. The Minotaur is in shock. Then we say the mysterious glass ball began to crack, its surface splintering with a low, ominous sound. As he looked at Percival in that moment, a new, unfamiliar emotion began to sprout within the demon beast, something he had never felt before. The Minotaur's body began to transform as a bright light radiated throughout the room. Its horns creaked as they grew longer. And also his hands, hooves, and entire body underwent a powerful transformation, growing larger, stronger, and radiating an overwhelming presence. Amidst the light of leveling up, the Minotaurs thought that it would be a bit of a shame if all the wounds Percival had given him would simply vanish. The newly leveled up Minotaurs gazed at Percival as his body shone brightly before vanishing. transforming into an orb of light. When one dies in the labyrinth, humans and monsters alike have their corpses disappear, leaving behind the items they bring, including the sack's content. The Minotaurs gathered some items, opened his sack, and stored the loot inside. The Minotaurs left some items behind. As he walked away, he thought to himself that he could use some rest and decided to sleep for a bit. Although his wounds had healed due to leveling up, his muscles, especially his heart, were severely tired out. Several days later, in the Sazavin labyrinth on the first floor, an adventurer was battling monsters and gathering the items they dropped. It was a young boy, his face lighting up with joy as he collected the coins dropped by the defeated monsters. Then, he noticed the sound of chatter. As he looked up, he saw a group of adventurers making their way back from deeper within the labyrinth. An old adventurer turned to his friend and said, "With the amount they earned, you already gained quite a few levels." Then, with a curious expression, he asked, "So, why are you heading to a place like that?" His friend replied, "The only thing we know for sure is that Moran is in luck." Hearing this, the young boy wore a puzzled expression, curious about who they were talking about. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Guild, the guild master and Gil were deep in discussion. Gil apologized to Logan, the guild master, saying, "I got caught up taking care of various errands and ended up running late." Logan replied, "I apologize as well for demanding your attention during such a busy time for you." Then, with a slight smile, he asked, "Have you had a quick break yet?" Gil chuckled and replied, "I did have a break. With the king, that is." Logan chuckled and said, "I wouldn't expect anything less from a great sage." Then, with a curious look, he asked, "Was the queen present as well?" Gil responded, "Only the second queen was present. I was told that the first queen felt a cold coming on and took precautions this morning." Logan asked if it was the second queen who had informed Gil, rather than the king himself. Gil simply responded that this was how he had heard about it. Logan asked if his assumption was correct, but Gil simply replied that he didn't know. Gil explained that within the court, conflicts often arose due to differing opinions and positions regarding power and its proper use. "At least, that's how it seems," he added. Ultimately, Gil continued, "What truly decides anything is simply the abandonment of thought." With a weary expression, Logan remarked that he recalled hearing the same sentiments spoken several decades ago. Gil says that from a person's perspective, they are the monsters. But from a monster's perspective, people are the monsters. He asks Logan if this is what he's referring to. Logan nodded in agreement, though a hint of shock crossed his face. He admitted that it had convinced him what was truly unjust was not the actions of villainous individuals, but rather the way people dealt with monsters. Gil responded that Logan was referring to the unfair standards by which people judge things. He explained that for monsters, concepts like happiness and unhappiness, justice and injustice, success and failure didn't hold the same meaning as they did for humans. However, despite that, he believed those ideas still existed for them to some extent. Gil added that there was a common trait shared between humans and monsters' reason and value. Despite their differences, both possessed the ability to think and assign meaning to things in their own way. Logan sighed and remarked that it seemed Gil had spent more time among monsters than humans. With a hint of curiosity, he then asked, "Are you still even human?" Gil chuckled and replied, "How cruel of you, Logan. For that, you're quite unjust yourself." The room fell into a brief silence before both Logan and Gil burst into laughter, sharing a moment of amusement between them. As their laughter faded, Gil shifted the conversation and inquired about the Minotaur's incident. He mentioned that, from what he had heard, the creature had reached a higher level and caused quite a stir. Logan held up a hand and told Gil to wait a moment, mentioning that their tea had run out and someone should be arriving any minute. Just as he finished speaking, a knock sounded at the door. "Yes," Logan called out in response. The door opened, revealing Yador, the guild manager. Logan glanced at him and asked if he had brought the new tea. Then, turning back to Gil with a smirk, he remarked that while Gil might be like a monster, Yador had not fallen behind him. He wanted Gil to observe Yador's actions the way he had seen through the entire situation. But Logan's smirk quickly faded, his expression shifting to shock as he noticed Yador's worried face, sweat beading on his forehead. Sensing something was wrong, Logan immediately asked, "What happened?" Inside the guild, a massive pile of items was brought in, drawing the attention of many onlookers engaged in lively chatter. As the guild master examined the collection, he discovered an adventurer's medal, one that belonged to Percival. Yador told him that, as they could see, no matter how many times it was appraised, it was undeniably Percival's medal. Still consumed by sadness, Logan instructed Yador to appraise it one more time. With a heavy heart, Gil told Logan not to upset his subordinates any further. Gil, gazing at the pile of items, remarked that the sack's contents were more than enough to raise one's level. He added that such treasures couldn't be in just any adventurer's possession. With a serious expression, he urged Logan to take a good look at the sheer amount of items before them, stating that it was more than enough proof. Meanwhile, Logan remained silent, still clutching Percival's medal tightly in his hand. Gil asked if the ones who found it were the party standing to the side. The receptionist responded with a nod and said, "Yes, their leader's name is Moran." But Moran responded that he was not the leader and that they were not a party. He explained that what he had found was simply too much for him to carry alone, so he hired some passers-by to help. Then he asked if those items truly belonged to the legendary heavenly sword, Percival. His eyes widened in shock as he shook his head in disbelief. The receptionist asked which floor the items had been found on. Moran replied that they were discovered on the 6th floor, near the staircase leading to the 5th floor. Gil frowned, deep in thought. What could Percival have been doing on the 6th floor, a low-level area unworthy of someone of his caliber? The question lingered in his mind. Meanwhile, the receptionist's gaze drifted over the pile of items. Something among them caught her attention. Moran, unable to contain his excitement, urged the guild president to hurry and appraise the massive pile of items. His eyes gleamed with anticipation. He added that if these truly belonged to the heavenly sword, Percival, then most of them were surely rare items. Furthermore, he reminded everyone that, according to guild regulations, half of the discovered items rightfully belonged to the ones who found them. Logan remained silent for a moment, before finally asking Yador if he could leave the rest in his hands. Yador nodded in agreement, stating that he would handle everything. He assured that the contribution process would be conducted according to the registrations, and that he would wait for a copy of the list once the appraisal results were available. Before leaving, Logan placed a hand on Yador's shoulder and quietly expressed his gratitude. Then, without another word, he walked away, his sadness still evident in his every step. Gil stepped into Logan's office, his expression heavy with sorrow. He hesitated for a moment before finally speaking. Among the items, there were the fool's boots, he said quietly. Seeing them had stirred a memory, one that made the situation even harder to accept. Gil recalled that monsters above the 50th floor didn't attack, meaning that on his way back up from the deeper levels, Percival would have equipped the unnamed sword and the fool's boots as extra weight, then dashed his way to the surface. It was something Percival had once mentioned as part of his training. The fool's boots are a cursed item. They significantly reduce one's physical ability when you put them on. Logan in disbelief slams the table with his fist. He asked that even in deeper levels, much less the 6th floor, there wasn't a monster alive who could kill Percival, even if he was wearing the fool's boots.